Hi there, Gil, and I am Michael Buckoff, the founder, owner, and the materials writer for all of your lessons at the 7-step system to pass a TOEFL IBT. And you completed independent writing practice test number 8, and you paid for the additional service to have me error correct and structure or restructure your essay, showing you what you need to do to get 5.0 out of 5 or 30 points out of 30. Now, you just told me in an email your goal is to get 27 points or higher, so that's what I want to do here. Now, I just read the essay right here, and I'm comfortable scoring you at 3.5 out of 5 or 22 points out of 30. All right, so let's take a look at the question. Students at universities often have a choice of places to live. They may choose to live in university dormitories, or they may choose to live in apartments in the community. Compare the advantages of living in university housing with the advantages of living in an apartment in the community. Where would you prefer to live? Give reasons for your preference. All right, let's take a look at each paragraph. Now, as I go, I want you to write down some key words, because as I rewrite part of your sentence or sentences or paragraphs, there may be certain kinds of errors. And then you can go to Google and you can type in these keywords. And I can also give you some recommendations of some lessons that you can study in my online TOEFL course to help you. So you say, becoming a university student, this is a word choice error. I would just say, instead of englobes, I would just say involves a great number of changes. And then you see one of these changes. If you say this is singular, changes is plural, so you have to say one of these changes, but still you can't use the comma here to join these separate independent clauses. But what if you did this? Now you no longer have that comma splice. So go to Google. What is a comma splice? That's what you did, and here's how you repair it. So one of which is choosing where to live. Some students may prefer to live in the university's dormitories, while others may choose to rent an apartment in the nearby community. Both places have their particular advantages, which I will further discuss. Probably don't even need to use that. You can just say both places have their particular advantages. And the reason is we can develop more points later on. You say first of all. If you say first of all, then you're going to have to say second of all. You're going to have to put that here to keep things parallel. Now, in the second paragraph, I want to give you a little bit better topic sentence here so it connects back. So you might say some students prefer to live in dorms and I'm looking at your two ideas here. What I'm trying to do is I want my topic sentence to match what's happening in your paragraph. So one of them, it looks like it saves time. Let's keep going here. So traffic is a major concern, thus living nearby is a great advantage. Issues such as waking up late can be easily overcome. Okay, so let's say this. Some students prefer to live in dorms because it can save time. And then we can get to this idea here. We can put these days, traffic is a major concern in most, and I think you can just say in most cities, And this is another comma splice. So this is a second sentence structure error you've had in as many paragraphs. So be careful. Again, why is this? You have these days traffic is a major concern. So you have traffic and is as a subject and a verb. Then you have living nearby is. But what if you did this? You can use semicolons. You can put thus, living nearby, I'm trying to make it a little more concise here. Thus, living nearby, easier for students to get to classes on time, even if they wake up late. Now notice instead of using the word you, I'm using students or they. It's called point of view here, Gil, is when you're writing for academic writing, you have the first person, which is I or me or my or mine. You have the second person, which is you or your. You have that third person, which is he, she, or it. Then you have even that third person plural, they. I think the you point of view or the second person singular is not the appropriate point of view for this type of writing. So that's why, and if you're not sure what I'm talking about, you can go to Google and type in the keywords choosing an appropriate point of view in writing. And you can learn a little bit more about that. Okay, let's keep going here. Living nearby makes it easier for students to get to classes on time, even if they wake up late. You can say this. I would probably say something like that. I'm trying to develop your paragraph a little bit more. I noticed your writing was around 328 words. So I would like your writing to be, for this type of writing, at least 350 to maybe 450 words. So I'm putting the example in there to help illustrate the point. So for example, if I have an 8 o'clock a.m. class, and if I wake up at 7:30 a.m., I will still have time to get to the class if I live in a dorm, since the dorm will be no more than a 5 to 10 minute walk from where I'm living. Okay, now the other thing here is I would focus, I think, in these body paragraphs 2 and 3, focus on the advantages of both of these ideas. What are the advantages of living in dorms? What are the advantages of living in an apartment? And just focus on that. So what does that mean? I think I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to get rid of that. You're now talking about the disadvantages of living in an apartment, and I don't think you need to worry about that, at least not based on what you're being asked to do in this question. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back to your topic sentence and add another idea here. Some students prefer to live in dorms because it can save time and money. So now we might say, furthermore, if students, and here's, I need to make a change here. If students, because I'm going to not use a personal pronoun here. I'm going to use the plural. If students have an 8 o'clock a.m. class, and if they wake up at 7:30 a.m., they will still have time to get to the class if they live in a dorm, since the dorm will be no more than a 5 to 10 minute walk from where they are living. Furthermore, living in dorms can help students save money because they will not have to worry about paying for transportation. We have to give an example. This is a key thing I want you to really get into your brain here. Whenever you make a statement, it's what we call an assertion. An assertion is a claim. You then need to back it up with some details. So I'm saying that living in dorms can help students save money because they'll not have to worry about paying for transportation. So we have to illustrate. To get to and from campus if students live in apartments. So it costs up to $5 a day. We'll say to pay for bus tickets, perhaps even more if these students choose to buy a car or take a taxi to school each day. Okay, so what do we got here? I think we're pretty good there. So let's take a look at the paragraph. Okay, that's plenty. That's 177 words, so that's enough, way enough. The average paragraph is between about 50 and 150 words, so I might be overdoing it a little bit. But I do have my two ideas here. So I'm trying to illustrate 2 points. So we have, first of all, some students prefer to live in dorms because it can save time and money. These days, traffic is a major concern in most cities, thus living nearby makes it easier for students to get to classes on time, even if they wake up late. For example, if students have an 8 o'clock a.m. class and if they wake up at 7:30 a.m., they will still have time to get to the class if they live in a dorm, since a dorm will be no more than a 5 to 10 minute walk from where they are living. Furthermore, living in dorms can help students save money because they'll not have to worry about paying for transportation. To illustrate, a bus ticket can cost up to $5 a day to get to and from campus if students live in, I'll make this plural because students live in apartments. Therefore, it could cost, maybe use them, because we already used students before. It can cost them close to $150 a month to pay for bus tickets, perhaps even more if these students choose to, maybe make this plural because students, to buy cars or take taxis to school each day. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this first of all idea here because you have to use a transition word here to show how this idea is different from the other. So this is actually pretty good. You have, on the other hand, despite the location issue, living in an apartment here. Now don't put the comma here. Why? This is a sentence structure error also, I think. Living in an apartment is actually your subject, and then has is the verb. Think of it like this, Gil. Would you say Michael, comma, is coming to my house today? Probably not, right? So in this case, the gerund is your subject. You don't want to separate it from its verb with a comma, so don't do that. She said, on the other hand, despite the location issue, living in an apartment also has its advantages in that it is more peaceful and quieter than living in the university dormitories. The only problem here is, this is what I think is going to hurt you, or it hurts your score a little bit. You have to show progression of ideas. You remember what I said before? Is when you make an assertion, you have to develop that idea with some examples. You just made an assertion that living in apartments is more peaceful and quieter. So then you might say for what if you said this, which will ensure instead of you, let's say students. We're trying to be objective here. We're not talking directly to our audience. We're not instructing them. We don't want to be that informal, right? So which will ensure the students will focus more on their studies. Or if you put a semicolon here, maybe put therefore. Achieving academic goals can be easier. For instance, So if, for instance, students living in apartments can choose whether or not they will live with roommates. Maybe these students can choose people they will you might say this. No, my advice here is I would use the personal experience example, the one that we see here. I would use this for your next paragraph, not for this one, because the personal example needs to go to support the argument that you're trying to make. And it doesn't show that you're objective or neutral when you get to that third body paragraph. Do you see what I'm saying? So I think if you want to compare the advantages of living in an apartment with the advantages of living in university housing, I'll discuss both things objectively. Then when you get to your argument, that's when you use your personal example, right? So then here we might say, let's kind of finish this paragraph. You say, for instance, students living in apartments can choose whether or not they will live with roommates. If they choose to live with roommates, these students can choose people with whom they'll be able to live peacefully. In many cases, students living in apartments will not have a lot of noise from roommates, and hence experience a quieter environment. And you say here by way of conclusion, I don't know, that's really weird. You can say in conclusion, you can say to sum up, you could say in the final analysis, but I don't think we would say it like that, by way of conclusion. That's a non-native speaker idea. Okay, let's take a look at where we are with our words right now. How many? I'm going to make a few changes here. Remember, we have to figure out how we want to integrate that personal example into your final paragraph. Okay, we're good. We're at 450. So I'm expanding your ideas a little bit more. I'm going to say to sum up. And this is good. I like here. It's really kind of wordy here. In most cases, Now what do we have to do here? We have to look at what you have here, right? I'm going to tie in your personal example here. I need to tie this in, and I want to make sure that my topic sentence here kind of alludes to it. So we have, to sum up, in most cases, living in apartments is more beneficial for students since less noise and distraction. You see, this is your problem with this paragraph. Remember, you have to look at where you put this. You put this in the previous paragraph, which it needs to be here. You didn't really have any specific example to support this idea. So let's say so we're going to take this idea here and put it here. Now I think we're getting somewhere. For example, I used to live in my university dormitory. It was a party 24/7. I could not focus on my studies because of all the noise distractions. When I had exams early in the morning trying to sleep, again, don't separate your subject from a verb with a comma. So when I had exams early in the morning, trying to sleep was a real problem. I had to move to an apartment. Don't need a comma here because you have attending a university is an important period in a young adult's life, which will have a fundamental role attending university is an important period in young adult's life, which will have a fundamental role. Listen, now that's a lot of grammar errors here. In his or her future. Period. Then start with a new sentence. Thus, everything that helps students to focus on his or her studies is of utter importance, and living in Okay, I think we have it. Yeah, I'm going to add in a cause-effect connector here to show this as a result. So as a result, I had to move to an apartment because all the noise and distraction made it hard for me to prepare for exams in my classes. Attending university is an important period in a young adult's life, which will have a fundamental role in his or her future. Thus, everything that helps the student to focus on his or her studies is of utter importance, and living in an apartment will help in part to accomplish this goal. All right, so I think we're moving in the right direction here. So what I'm doing is, notice how I made some changes in the topic sentences, and I wanted the topic sentences to really kind of restate the purpose, I think, of each of the different parts of the writing assignment. Okay, let's spell check it one more time here. Is that it? That's it. Okay, let's read it all one more time. We'll make a few corrections. Now, most likely, I may not correct every single thing here. This is kind of like a live thing. I'm doing it as I speak. But let's see what we have. Becoming a university student involves a great number of changes, one of which is choosing where to live. Some students may prefer to live in the university's dormitories, while others may choose to rent an apartment in the nearby community. Both places have their particular advantages. Notice we kept that first paragraph kind of short, but we spent a lot of time developing your body paragraphs. Some students prefer to live in dorms because it can save time and money. These days, traffic is a major concern in most cities. Thus, living nearby makes it easier for students to get to classes on time, even if they wake up late. For example, if students have an 8 o'clock a.m. class, and if they wake up at 7:30 a.m., they will still have time to get to the class if they live in a dorm, since the dorm will be no more than a 5 to 10 minute walk from where they're living. Furthermore, living in dorms can help students save money because they will not have to worry about paying for transportation. To illustrate, a bus ticket can cost up to $5 a day to get to and from campus if students live in apartments. Therefore, it could cost them close to $150 a month to pay for bus tickets, and perhaps even more if these students choose to buy cars or take taxis to school each day. Then we have, on the other hand, despite the location issue, living in an apartment also has its advantages in, I need to put this word in there, this is why I read it, in that it is more peaceful and quieter than living in the university dormitories, which will ensure that students will focus more on their studies. I think this is a little awkward. Let's give you a little bit more advanced grammar, make this a participle, thereby ensuring that students will focus more on their studies. Therefore, achieving academic goals can be easier. For instance, students living in apartments can choose whether or not they will live with roommates. If they choose to live with roommates, these students can choose people with whom they will be able to live peacefully. In many cases, students living in apartments will not have a lot of noise from roommates or from other tenants in the building, and hence experience a quieter, you might say, and more productive studying environment. To sum up, in most cases, now what I did here, I wanted the final paragraph to be developed about the same as the other three, or the other two there. So, to sum up, in most cases, living in apartments is more beneficial for students since there is less noise and distraction. For example, I used to live in my university dormitory, and it was a party 24/7. The only problem, this is kind of like slang. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I get that, but it's maybe a little too informal. And it was a party most of the time. And then maybe use in fact here. In fact, I could not focus on my studies because of all the noise and distractions. When I had exams early in the morning, trying to sleep was a real problem. As a result, I had to move to an apartment because all the noise and distraction made it hard for me to prepare for my exams and my classes. Attending a university is an important period in young adult young adult's life, which will have a fundamental role in his or her future. Thus, everything that helps a student to focus on his or her studies is of utter importance, and living in an apartment will help in part to accomplish this goal. I'm going to put a comma here to separate the two independent clauses. Okay, so what you wrote, I'm putting you at 3.5 out of 5, 22 points out of 30. And the changes I made to your writing is now going to put it at about 30 points out of 30, or 5.5 out of 5. Now, you're paying me to do more than just error correct. The main thing now is we need to tackle some of your problems right now. So I'm going to review or give you some ideas on some different lessons in my online TOEFL course that are going to help you improve your writing proficiency. Okay, the one I think is going to be good here is lesson number 8, how to make your writing more coherent. I think especially in terms of creating your topic sentences. Remember how I recast your topic sentences so they more directly and more explicitly stated some of the key points, I think, from the writing prompt. So writing lesson number 8 is a good lesson for you right now. The rest of the lessons I'm going to recommend have to do with grammar. So let's go to the grammar part of my online TOEFL course right now, see what we have. Okay, let's take a look at it. I think lesson 6, sentences with adjective clauses. I'd like to have you take a look at that. Lesson number 13, word choice. I think you could benefit by studying that lesson. Okay, what else here? Lesson number 25, comma splices. That's the one you had the most trouble with. So lesson number 25, lesson number 26, sentence variety, I think is a good one. Lesson 27, being more concise. Sometimes you have the tendency to be a little bit too wordy in some of the sentences that you write. Lesson number 28, when to use commas. I think this is an important one for you right now. And I think that covers it. So if you review those lessons, that'll help tackle some of the language use issues that you're having. And then you have to kind of remember some of the changes that I made to the essay that you submitted to me. All right. Anyway, thank you for completing this independent writing practice test. I think you're on track. I'm pretty comfortable with your writing skills, and I'm confident that with making a few changes, I think you should be able to get closer to reaching your goal of getting 27 points or higher on the writing section. But remember, 27 points or higher is a pretty high score. You got to be really, really organized, highly developed. You have to have almost generally, your writing needs to be generally free from errors in sentence structure, word choice, punctuation, mechanics, and so on. All right. Anyway, thank you for completing this writing practice test. Happy New Year to you, and all the best to your high-scoring writing success.